The first thing I heard was the glass. Sharp crack. Then a rain of tiny pieces skittering across the kitchen tile like angry insects. The overhead light flickered once like it was scared too. And then his shadow filled the doorway. Look at me when I'm talking to you. My throat went tight. My palms were slick. I kept my face down like I'd done 1,000 times in my head while practicing for this moment. I stared at the broken cup near my feet and forced my breathing to stay slow. In the corner, the refrigerator hummed like nothing was wrong. He stepped closer. Heavy. Confident. You think you can ignore me? He said, voice low, almost calm. That was the worst part. When Ethan got quiet, it meant he was already choosing the kind of pain he wanted to cause. I swallowed. My fingers brushed the edge of the table, where a phone sat face down under a folded dish towel. Recording. Reda. Please God. Keep recording. Ethan leaned in until I could smell his cologne. Too strong, too expensive, like armor. He tilted my chin up with 2 fingers, not gentle, not rough enough to leave a mark right away. Just enough to remind me he could. His eyes narrowed. For half a second, his gaze snagged on something. A tiny scar near my thumb. So small most people never noticed it. But Ethan noticed everything. His face shifted like a lock clicking. Since when do you have that? He asked. My heart stuttered. I knew right then that this was going to get much harder than I planned. Because if he figured out I wasn't his wife, the whole trap would snap shut. And I would be alone in a house with a man who thought control was love and silence was permission. I forced a small, shaky smile and made my voice soft. Since always, I whispered. He stared at me, searching my face like it was a crime scene. And behind him, just past his shoulder, the hallway mirror caught a reflection that made my stomach drop. A second phone, propped on a shelf, pointed straight at the kitchen. His phone. He'd been recording me too. And Ethan had no idea that the woman standing in front of him wasn't the one he'd been breaking for months. He had no idea that tonight, the person he thought he owned was the one person on earth who wouldn't bend. And he definitely had no idea that the truth he was about to confess, out loud on tape, would destroy his entire life by morning. Because I didn't come here to survive him. I came here to end him. It started 3 days earlier, with a call I almost missed. I was halfway through folding laundry in my small apartment, the kind of quiet Tuesday that feels like any other. TV was on low. My coffee had gone cold. Life was normal. Then my phone buzzed. Maya flashed on the screen. My twin sister. I smiled without thinking. Even at 29, I still heard her voice in my head when I saw her name. The way she laughed too hard. The way she always said okay when she was nervous. The way she could make any room feel less heavy. I answered, already talking. Hey May. Sound cut me off. Not words. Breathing. Rest. Even. Like someone trying not to cry, failing. Maya. I stood up so fast my chair scraped. What's wrong? Silence. Then a whisper. Ivy. I can't do this anymore. My skin went cold. Where is he? Another breath. Tiny hiccup. In the shower, she said. My hand tightened around the phone. Are you safe right now? She didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. Maya, I said, and my voice came out sharper than I meant. Tell me what happened. Then she said it like she was reading a weather report. He pushed me into the counter. Closed my eyes. For a second my apartment was too bright, too clean. My brain tried to reject it. Ethan. Maya's Ethan. The man with a kind smile at the wedding, who toasted her and called her his miracle, who danced with her like he was proud to be seen with her. But I hadn't lived with him. I hadn't heard the doors slam at midnight. I hadn't watched her shrink. What else? Yes. Her voice got smaller. He said it was my fault. That I made him crazy. That I looked at him like he was nothing. I swallowed hard. Are you hurt? She hesitated like she didn't want to say the words out loud, like naming it would make it real. My cheek is swollen, she whispered. And my arm. It's dark. My fingers started to shake. Send me a picture, I said. No, she said quickly. Too quickly. I don't want you to see. Maya, I snapped, then softened. Please. I need to know. She made a small sound like she was fighting herself. Then a message came through. Opened it. And my stomach turned. My sister's face, the same face as mine but bruised. One cheek puffy. Her lips split at the corner. Her eyes red like she'd cried until her body ran out of water. Her arm had finger-shaped marks. Not faint. Not old. Fresh. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. This was my face. This was my blood. And someone did this. Listen to me, I said, and my voice was not calm anymore. Pack a bag right now. You're coming here. I can't, she whispered. Yes, you can. No, she said, and something in her voice cracked open. You don't understand. If I leave, he'll what? I demanded. He'll hurt you more. Maya, he's already. She cut me off, voice sharp with fear. He has cameras, she hissed. He has alarms. He knows when I open the front door. He knows when I text you. He checks my phone. He says he'll find me anywhere. My stomach sank. Maya, you need to call the police. A bitter laugh escaped her. And say what? That my husband is mean. He'll cry. He'll smile. He'll say I'm emotional. He'll tell them I fall a lot. And they'll look at him and they'll look at me and they'll believe him. That was the part that made me feel like I was choking. Because I knew she was right. People like Ethan knew how to wear a mask. And Maya, my Maya, had always hated conflict. She was the kind of person who apologized when someone bumped into her at the grocery store. Okay, I said slowly. Okay. Then we do it another way. What do you mean? She whispered. I stared at her photo, at the bruises, at the fear in her eyes. And something in me hardened, not into anger but into focus. Do you trust me? Yes. Yes, she said immediately, like it was the only easy thing left in her life. Then listen, I said. I'm coming there. Tonight. Ivy, no. Yes, I said. I'll be there by morning. She started to cry, soft, panicked. He'll kill you, she whispered. I swallowed my rage. He doesn't get to decide who lives, Maya. I sniffed. What are you going to do? I looked around my safe apartment. My quiet life. The normal world that had been real for me and imaginary for her. I'm going to take you out, I said. And I'm going to make sure he can never touch you again. She breathed, trembling. How? I didn't answer right away. Because the idea was already forming, sharp and dangerous and maybe illegal in a dozen ways. But all I could see was my sister's face, bruised and small. And all I could think was, if the system didn't protect her, then I would. Pack the smallest bag you can, I said. Hide it. And Maya, don't let him hear you cry tonight. Don't give him any warning. What if he notices I'm different? She whispered. I pictured her in that house, walking on eggshells, pretending she wasn't terrified. Then I said the words that changed everything. He won't notice, I said softly. Not if I'm the one standing in front of him. Silence. Maya, she breathed. I know, I said. It sounds crazy. It sounds impossible. We're twins, I said. We've fooled teachers, friends, even Mom once, and she carried us. She made a weak sound, almost a laugh, then it turned into a sob. Ivy, I'm scared, she admitted. So am I said. But I'm more scared of what happens if we do nothing. I booked a flight that night. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. Every time I closed them, I saw Maya's bruises. I heard the way her voice trembled. I imagined Ethan's hands on her arm, and something inside me went silent and cold. By dawn, I was on a plane with a backpack and a storm in my chest. Maya lived in a quiet suburb outside a mid-sized city. The kind of neighborhood with perfect lawns and porch lights and friendly waves. The kind of place where people thought bad things happened somewhere else. I rented a car and drove straight there, keeping my sunglasses on, even though the sky was gray. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. Parked a few houses down. I didn't go to the front door. Maya had whispered about cameras, about alarms, about how he knew everything. So I walked around the block like I was just stretching my legs. I watched, counted. There was a tiny black camera above the garage, another near the porch, a motion sensor light on the side gate. Ethan wasn't paranoid. He was prepared. Maya had told me the safest place in the whole house was the laundry room, because it was the one room without a camera. Ethan said it was boring. He didn't care what she did in there. I waited until a car pulled into the driveway. Black SUV. Clean. Polished. The kind of car that said, "Successful man." Ethan's. He got out wearing a crisp shirt and a smile, like he was walking into a meeting, not into a house where fear lived. I watched him go inside. The door closed. The porch light blinked once. Then I moved fast. I slipped through the side gate when the motion light clicked off again. My heart pounded so loud I was sure it would trigger something. I moved in the shadow of the fence, up to the small basement window Maya had described. It was cracked open just enough for air. A hand appeared. Her hand. Shaking. I grabbed it, gentle like I was holding something made of glass. She pulled and I slipped inside. The basement smelled like detergent and dust. It was dim. The only light came from a small bulb near the stairs. Maya stood there in an old sweatshirt, hair pulled back, eyes huge. Up close, the bruises looked worse. I reached for her face without thinking. My fingertips hovered, afraid to touch. "You came," she whispered like she still didn't believe it. "I'm here," I said, and my voice broke. "Oh my God, Maya." She tried to smile, but her lip cracked and she flinched. I felt something hot rise in my throat. "You need a doctor," I said. She shook her head fast. "No. He'll know." "Let him know," I said, and my voice sharpened. "Let him choke on it." She grabbed my arm, panicked. "No," she whispered fiercely. "You can't. You can't make him mad. Not yet. Not yet." The words landed like a plan. I stared at her, really stared, and saw what I hadn't wanted to see before. This wasn't new. This wasn't a bad night. This was a pattern. "How long?" I asked quietly. Maya's eyes filled. She looked away. "It started after we got married," she whispered. "Not right away. First it was just words. Then he'd grab my wrist too hard. Then he'd shove me if I talked back." I took a slow breath. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her shoulders sagged. "Because I was embarrassed. 'Cause I thought maybe I could fix it. Because he'd cry after and say he was stressed and he didn't mean it. And I wanted to believe him." I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them. "We're ending it," I said. Maya shook her head, tears falling. I tried. I tried to leave once. He found me at a motel 2 towns over. He dragged me back in front of the clerk and smiled the whole time like I was a naughty kid. Then at home She stopped herself. Her throat worked like she was swallowing something bitter. I grabbed her hands. "Listen," I said. "You don't ever have to go back to that alone again." She looked at me. "What are you going to do?" I stared at her bruises. Then at the basement stairs. Then at the ceiling above us, where Ethan was probably walking around like a king. I spoke slowly, careful, because once I said it, there was no going back. "We switch," I said. Maya's eyes widened. "Ivy." "Just for a little," I said. "Long enough for me to get proof. Real proof. Something he can't smile his way out of." She shook her head. "He'll know." "No," I said. "He won't want to. He sees what he wants. And he thinks you're trapped. That makes him lazy." Maya's voice shook. "And if he hurts you?" I leaned in. "He already did," I whispered. "He hurt my sister. He hurt my other half. Now he's going to learn what it feels like to lose control." Maya swallowed hard. "This is crazy." "Maybe," I said. "But you're not safe. And if you run without proof, he'll hunt you. If we stay without proof, he'll keep hurting you. Maya's hands trembled in mine. I can do this, I said. I can act like you. I know you. I know your voice. Your little habits. I can get him to show his real face. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was looking at her own reflection and trying to figure out if it was brave or foolish. Then she whispered, I don't want you to die because of me. I squeezed her hands. You're not the reason, I said. He is. We spent the next hour in the laundry room, planning in rushed whispers. Maya showed me where he kept the spare keys, where the cameras were, which ones had sound, which rooms were safe. She showed me the small notebook she'd been hiding behind the dryer. A diary, but not the kind with feelings. This one had dates. What he said. What he did. Who might have heard. Photos she'd snapped quickly and then hidden. Evidence. My chest tightened. You've been collecting this. She nodded, shame on her face. I didn't know what else to do. You did the right thing, I said firmly. You did the smart thing. She looked like she didn't know how to accept that. Then she told me the most important part. He has a big dinner on Saturday, she whispered. His boss. Some friends. He wants to look perfect. I felt my lips curl into something that wasn't a smile. Perfect, I echoed. Maya nodded. He's trying to get promoted. He's been extra careful. Not leaving marks where people can see. I stared at her arm again and felt sick. Saturday, I murmured. So he's got something to lose. She swallowed. Yes. Good, I said. Maya's face went pale. What are you thinking? I looked her in the eye. I'm thinking, I said softly, that people like Ethan don't change because someone asks them to. They change when the cost gets higher than the pleasure. Maya shivered. I reached into my backpack and pulled out what I'd packed at 3 a.m. like I was going to war. Tiny voice recorder. Spare phone. Charger. A small clip-on microphone. A folder with numbers for local shelters and lawyers. A list of steps, not to hurt him but to end him. Maya stared. You planned this. I planned to save you, I corrected. The next part was the hardest. We switched clothes. Sounds simple. Like a movie trick. Like something you'd do at a party. But when I pulled on Maya's sweatshirt, when I tied my hair the way she did, when I looked into the laundry room mirror and saw her face staring back at me, I felt a wave of rage so strong it made me dizzy. Because this face wasn't just mine. It was hers. And it had been used as a target. Maya changed into my clothes. Jacket. Sneakers. She looked like herself and not herself at the same time. Like a ghost trying on a new body. You're leaving through the basement window, I said. You go straight to the motel off Route 9. I booked it under my name. You do not call me. You do not text. If Ethan checks your phone, he'll see nothing. Maya nodded, breathing fast. And if he asks, she whispered. If he asks why I'm different. I stepped close, matching her posture in the mirror, copying her expression. You tell me his rules, I said. Maya swallowed. Don't argue. Don't raise your voice. Don't look him in the eye when he's mad. Always say you're sorry. Always. Felt sick. Then I nodded slowly, like I was locking those rules into a performance. And if he tries to corner me, I said, I'll do what you've done. Maya grabbed my arm. Ivy, no. Don't let him. I won't, I promised. I'll keep distance. I'll stay in rooms with exits. And I'll be recording. Maya's eyes shone with fear. What if he sees it? Then I run, I said simply. And you call the police. She hesitated. I don't know if I can. I cupped her face gently, careful of the bruises. You can, I said. Because if you don't, he wins. And Maya. You didn't survive all this just to let him keep winning. Her lips trembled. Then she nodded. She climbed out the basement window and disappeared into the gray morning, carrying nothing but a small bag and the hope that I wouldn't get caught. And I walked upstairs into her life like I was stepping onto a stage. Ethan was in the living room, loosening his tie, watching TV like a normal husband. He looked up when I entered. For a heartbeat, his eyes softened. That charm. That mask. "Hey," he said like we'd had the sweetest morning. "You okay?" I made my shoulders smaller. I lowered my gaze. I let my voice go quiet. "I'm fine," I whispered. He studied me. Then his eyes flicked to my cheek. The bruise was covered with makeup. Maya had shown me how. She'd learned to hide pain the way other people learn to do eyeliner. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Come here," he said. Took a step slow. He reached for my chin again, the same controlling gesture like he owned my face. My stomach turned, but I kept my expression blank. "Did you ice it?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. He nodded, satisfied, like he'd done a good job caring for something he'd broken. Then he leaned in, voice low. "And you're not going to make me do that again, right?" There it was. The threat wrapped in a question. I forced my lips to move. "No," I whispered. "I'm sorry." Ethan exhaled like he'd won. He kissed my forehead, soft, and it made my skin crawl. "Good girl," he murmured. I wanted to spit. But I didn't. Because the trap wasn't sprung yet. The first day was a test of acting and patience. Ethan moved through the house like a man who expected the world to step aside for him. He told me what to cook, what to wear, what not to do. He called it helping. It was control, simple and sharp. Every time he left the room, I searched. I found the cameras Maya told me about. Small hidden. A tiny lens in a smoke detector. Another tucked behind a bookshelf. Made my stomach clench. He'd been watching her like a prisoner. In the laundry room, I checked the notebook again. The entries were neat, like Maya was trying to make chaos look organized. April 3rd. 10:12 p.m. He grabbed my wrist when I asked about money. Said I was ungrateful. Bruised left side. May 17th. 7:40 a.m. He shoved me into the pantry door. Said I was stupid. Neighbor's dog barked. June 2nd. 11:05 p.m. He threw my phone. Said I was acting single. I read until my eyes burned. Then I did something Maya had never done. Called a lawyer. Not from the house. Not from her phone. From my spare phone, sitting in my rental car, parked 2 blocks away under a tree. My hands shook as I dialed. A woman answered. Professional. Law office. "My name is Ivy," I said. "My sister is in danger. She needs a restraining order and a plan. But her husband is... careful. We need proof." There was a pause, then her tone changed, softer. "Are you safe right now?" she asked. I stared at the house. Ethan's house. Maya's prison. "Not exactly," I admitted. "But I'm working on it." The lawyer took a breath. "Listen to me," she said. "You can't provoke him. You can't escalate. Your job is safety and documentation. If you have injuries, photograph them. If you have threats, record them if it's legal in your state. And you need a safe place for your sister today." I swallowed. "She's in a motel." "Good," she said. "Now we build a case. And you call the police the moment you feel unsafe." Promise. Meant it. Then I went back inside and kept playing Maya. That night, Ethan poured himself a drink and sat too close. He watched me like he was bored and looking for entertainment. "You've been quiet," he said. I nodded, eyes down. He smirked. "Maybe you finally learned." My fists clenched under the table. He leaned closer. "You know," he said, voice lazy, "you're lucky I put up with you. Most men would have left a long time ago." Forced a whisper. "I know." He smiled wider. "Say it," he demanded. "Say you need me." My pulse hammered. This was the game. Break her. Make her beg. Make her smaller. I took a slow breath and gave him the line he wanted, because sometimes feeding the monster makes it show its teeth. "I need you," I whispered. Ethan's eyes gleamed. He reached out and squeezed my arm, not loving, not gentle. "Reminder." "Good," he said. "Because if you ever embarrass me again, I swear." He stopped like he remembered the cameras. Like he remembered to be careful. But the threat still hung there, heavy and sharp. I nodded, pretending to accept it. But inside I was building a wall. And I was counting down to Saturday. The next day I met the neighbor. Her name was Mrs. Langley, an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She came over with a plate of cookies like the neighborhood was still normal. Ethan loved neighbors. Loved being liked. He opened the door with a bright smile. "Mrs. Langley, come in." She stepped inside, then her eyes flicked to my cheek. Quick. Worried. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly. I wanted to tell her everything right then. I wanted to grab her hand and say, "Please, help me. Help her." But I couldn't. Not yet. Ethan draped an arm around my shoulders. Possessive. "Maya's been a little clumsy," he laughed. "You know her." Mrs. Langley didn't laugh. She held my gaze for a second too long. Then she said quietly, "If you ever need anything, you can knock." Ethan's hand tightened on my shoulder. "She's fine," he said smoothly. "Aren't you, babe?" He nodded. "I'm fine." Mrs. Langley's eyes didn't believe me. After she left, Ethan's smile vanished like a light turning off. He pushed me against the wall in the hallway so fast my breath jumped. "What did she mean by that?" he hissed. Kept my voice small. "Nothing. She's just nice." His eyes were cold. "Don't make me look like a fool," he whispered. "Don't you dare." My fingers brushed my phone in my pocket. Recording app open. He stared at my face like he was deciding how far he could go without leaving a mark. Then he stepped back and fixed his shirt like nothing happened. "Dinner Saturday," he said, voice normal again. "You're going to behave." He nodded. "Yes." He walked away. I stayed still for a moment, heart pounding, and then I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and texted Maya from my spare phone using a new number. One line. "Saturday. Be ready." She replied a minute later. "I'm scared." I typed back with shaking hands. "Me too." But it ends. Friday night, Ethan was restless. He paced, checked his phone, adjusted the table settings like he was preparing for a royal visit. His boss was coming. His boss's wife. 2 co-workers. People he needed to impress. Ethan didn't love Maya. He loved what Maya did for his image. That night, he stood behind me at the sink while I washed dishes. His hand slid onto my waist. It would have looked romantic to anyone watching. But his fingers pressed hard like clamps. "You're going to wear the blue dress," he murmured in my ear. "The one that makes you look sweet." I stared at the soap bubbles, jaw tight. "Okay." "And you're going to smile," he said. "No weird faces. No attitude." "Okay." He leaned in closer. "Because if you ruin this for me," his voice dropped, "I'll make sure you regret it." My stomach turned, but my voice stayed soft. "I won't," I whispered. Then he kissed my neck. And I felt nothing but disgust. When he went to bed, I stayed up in the laundry room. Safe room. No cameras. I pulled out Maya's notebook and photographed every page with my spare phone. Then I uploaded them to a cloud drive under a new account. Then I emailed the lawyer the link. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. This wasn't revenge with fists. This was revenge with facts. Before sunrise, I drove to the motel. Maya opened the door and fell into my arms like she'd been holding herself together with string. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "I'm fine," I lied. She pulled back and searched my face. "Did he?" "No," I said quickly. "Not yet." She looked like she might collapse from relief. I held her shoulders. "Saturday is the night," I said. "He wants to look perfect. We're going to use that." Maya's eyes widened. "How?" Took a breath. "He's been careful," I said. "But he slips when he's stressed. And he's stressed now. We're going to get him talking. We're going to get him arrogant." Maya swallowed. "And then," I said, voice steady, "we make sure he can't hide anymore." Saturday arrived like a storm. By late afternoon, the house was spotless. The table looked like a magazine photo. Candles, wine glasses, fancy napkins folded like swans. Ethan watched me like a hawk while I cooked. "You're doing it wrong," he snapped when I sprinkled salt. "I'm sorry," I murmured. He rolled his eyes. "Honestly, sometimes I wonder how you survive without me." I kept my head down, but inside I was counting every word. Because every insult, every threat, every moment of control was going into the record. Before the guests arrived, Ethan pulled me into the bedroom and stood in front of the mirror with me. He adjusted my necklace like a husband helping his wife. But his eyes were hard. "Listen," he said. "Tonight you are a prop. You smile. You laugh when you're supposed to. You do not talk about your feelings. You do not embarrass me. Got it?" He nodded. "Got it." He leaned in until our reflections touched. "And if you mess up," he whispered, "I'll remind you why you don't have choices." My stomach clenched, but my hand slid behind my back and clicked the tiny recorder on my bra strap. Then the doorbell rang. Ethan's face changed instantly. Mail. Warmth. Charm. "Showtime," he murmured, and went to greet his guests like he was the king of a perfect little world. The boss, Mr. Carrington, walked in with his wife. Confident. The kind of man Ethan wanted to become. Ethan shook his hand too hard. "So glad you could make it." Mrs. Carrington hugged me. Her perfume was soft, clean, normal. "Oh, Maya, you look lovely," she said. I forced a smile. "Thank you." More guests arrived. Laughter filled the room. Glasses clinked. Music played low. It almost felt like a real dinner party. Almost. I watched Ethan the way you watch a snake. Every time he laughed, I saw the cruelty underneath. Every time he touched my shoulder, I felt the hidden message, mine. At the table, Mr. Carrington spoke about work, about leadership, about trust. Ethan nodded along like he understood the meaning of any of it. Then the boss's wife asked, sweet and casual, "So, Maya, what do you do?" My heart jumped. Maya had told me what to say. But Ethan's eyes flicked to me, warning. I smiled politely. "I help with some freelance work," I said softly. "Mostly from home." Mrs. Carrington nodded. "That's nice. And Ethan, you must be so supportive." Ethan laughed. "Of course," he said smoothly. "I take care of my family." My fingers curled under the table. Then Ethan's coworker, a woman named Janine, leaned forward. "I heard you're up for that promotion," she said. "That's huge." Ethan's eyes lit up. "Yes," he said, trying to sound humble. "It's looking good." Mr. Carrington nodded, serious. "It's a big role. We need someone stable. Someone who handles pressure well." Ethan smiled. "That's me." "Good," Mr. Carrington said. "Because we can't afford problems." Ethan's smile tightened for half a second. I saw it. Fear. Not of hurting Maya. Not of being caught. Fear of losing status. And that was the crack I needed. Dinner moved along. Dessert came out. Laughter rose. Then Ethan refilled his wine glass for the third time. His cheeks flushed. His words got looser. He liked showing off. He liked being admired. And he liked believing he was untouchable. At one point, Mr. Carrington joked about stress at home. Ethan chuckled. "Tell me about it," he said, waving his hand. "Women don't get it. They nag, they whine, they push you, and then they act shocked when you snap." The table went quiet for a beat. A few guests laughed awkwardly. Mrs. Carrington's smile faded. I lowered my gaze like Maya would. Ethan didn't notice the discomfort. He kept going, warmed up by his own confidence. "Honestly," he said, leaning back, "sometimes you have to remind them who's in charge." Janine blinked. "What do you mean?" Ethan smirked. "I mean you can't let things slip. You give them an inch, they take a mile." Mr. Carrington's face stayed neutral, but his eyes sharpened. I felt the recorder against my skin. Still running. Still capturing. Ethan looked at me like I was part of his joke. "Right, babe," he said, smiling sweetly. "You know I keep you in line." My chest tightened. This was the moment. The open door. I lifted my eyes slowly. And instead of shrinking, I let my voice come out clear. No, I said. The word hit the table like a dropped fork. Ethan froze. The guests froze. Ethan's smile twitched. What did you say? I set my spoon down calmly. My heart was pounding so hard I could taste metal. But my voice stayed steady. I said no, I repeated. Ethan's eyes flashed warning. His jaw tightened. He leaned toward me, still smiling for the guests, but his voice was a knife. Don't, he whispered. I smiled back, sweet as sugar. Then I said, loud enough for everyone, you don't keep me in line, Ethan. You keep me afraid. Silence. The air went thick. Even the music in the background felt too loud. Mrs. Carrington's hand flew to her mouth. Janine stared at Ethan like she didn't recognize him. Mr. Carrington's face went cold. Ethan, he said slowly, what is she talking about? Ethan laughed. Too loud. Oofy. She's joking, he said quickly. Maya has a weird sense of humor. I'm not joking, I said. Ethan's smile cracked. His eyes cut into me with pure hate. He stood up so fast his chair scraped. Maya, he hissed, can we talk? Now. He reached for my wrist. I didn't pull away. I wanted him to touch me. 'Cause I wanted everyone to see. His fingers clamped down. Possessive. Mrs. Carrington stood up too. Excuse me, she said, voice sharp. Let go of her. Ethan's head snapped toward her, shocked. He wasn't used to being challenged. He forced a laugh. It's fine. No, Mr. Carrington said, and his voice had steel in it. It's not fine. Sit down. Ethan froze. I watched him struggle. The mask wanted to stay on. But the anger wanted out. He looked around the table. 6 pairs of eyes. Witnesses. And then he did what abusers do when the room turns against them. He tried to flip the story. She's unstable, Ethan said, voice smooth again. She gets emotional. She's been difficult lately. I tilted my head. Difficult, I echoed softly. Is that what you call it when someone asks you to stop hurting them? Ethan's eyes flashed. I don't hurt you, he snapped. I held his gaze calm. Then explain this, I said. Pulled out my phone. Not Maya's. My spare. Tap play. First it was just sound. Clinking dishes. His voice from earlier laughing. Sometimes you have to remind them who's in charge. You give them an inch, they take a mile. Then, clearer, colder. His voice from the bedroom mirror, recorded the night before. If you mess up, I'll remind you why you don't have choices. The table went dead silent. Ethan's face drained. Janine's eyes widened. Oh my God, she whispered. Mrs. Carrington looked sick. Mr. Carrington stood up slowly. Ethan, he said, and his voice was quiet now, the kind of quiet that ends careers. What the hell is that? Ethan lunged toward me. Turn that off. I stepped back, still calm. And in that moment the front door opened. 2 police officers stepped inside. Ethan froze like a statue. Because earlier that day I had made a call. Not to threaten him. Not to bait him. To report domestic violence. To request a welfare check. To have officers nearby. And when the dinner reached the breaking point, Mrs. Langley, the neighbor who had offered cookies and kindness, had done exactly what I prayed she would do. She had called too. The first officer looked around the room, taking in the tension, the stunned faces, the way Ethan's hand hovered like he wanted to grab me again. Ma'am, the officer said gently to me. Are you Maya? I took a slow breath. This was the twist. This was the risk. This was the part where the truth could either save us or destroy us. I lifted my chin. No, I said clearly. I'm Ivy. Her twin sister. Gasps burst around the table. Ethan's mouth fell open. Mr. Carrington looked like the floor had shifted under him. Janine whispered, Twin. The officer blinked once, surprised, then refocused. Where is Maya? She's safe, I said. But she's been living in fear in this house. And Ethan has been hurting her. We have documentation. Photos. A journal. And recordings. Ethan's face twisted with rage. "That's a lie," he shouted. "She's impersonating, she's crazy." The second officer held up a hand. "Sir," he said firmly, "step back." Ethan's chest heaved. He looked around the room like he was searching for someone to support him. No one moved. No one saved him. Because without his mask, he was just a man standing in the middle of his own ruin. Mr. Carrington's voice was ice. "You're done," he said to Ethan. Ethan spun toward him. "You can't." "I can," Mr. Carrington said. "And I will." The officers asked questions. They took statements. They looked at the bruise on my cheek and the grip marks on my arm from where Ethan had grabbed me at the table. And when Ethan tried to talk his way out, the officer looked him in the eye and said something simple. "Sir, we have witnesses. We have audio. We have visible injuries. You can explain it at the station." Ethan's face went blank. For the first time he looked small. Not sorry. Not guilty. Just afraid. Because his world ran on fear. And now the fear had changed hands. As the officers led him toward the door, Ethan twisted his head back toward me. His eyes were wild. "You think you won," he hissed. I stepped closer, just enough that only he could hear me. Smiled. "No," I whispered. "I think you finally lost." He tried to jerk away, but the officer tightened his grip. And Ethan Carrington, perfect husband, charming employee, respectable neighbor, was walked out of his own house in front of the people he'd tried so hard to impress. The sound of the door closing behind him felt like air returning to a room that had been suffocating for years. Later that night, I drove to the motel and knocked on Maya's door. She opened it slowly, eyes swollen from crying. She looked like she'd been holding her breath for days. When she saw me, she collapsed into my arms. "Is it over?" she whispered. I held her tight. "It started," I said. "But yes, he's gone tonight." Maya sobbed against my shoulder, the kind of sob that comes from your body when it finally understands it might survive. We sat on the motel bed and I told her everything. The dinner. The recordings. Police. Mr. Carrington's face. The way the room turned on Ethan like the truth was a light no one could ignore. Maya listened with trembling hands, like she was hearing a story about someone else. Then she whispered, "I feel guilty." My heart clenched. "Why?" She stared at her knees. "Because he looked scared." I took her face in my hands. "Maya," I said firmly, "you are not responsible for his fear. He built this. He chose this. He used fear like a weapon. Now he's tasting his own medicine." Her eyes filled. "What if he gets out?" "He will," I said. "But we have protection now. The lawyer is filing for a restraining order first thing Monday. We have your journal. We have recordings. We have witnesses." Maya swallowed. "Witnesses?" He nodded. "People saw. People heard. For the first time, he couldn't hide behind your silence." Maya shook, like she didn't know how to stand in a world where she wasn't alone. The weeks after were not perfect. They weren't a movie where everything ends with one big moment and then the credits roll. Healing doesn't work like that. Ethan fought. Of course he did. He tried to paint Maya as unstable. He tried to say she was lying. He tried to claim I set him up. But the journal had dates. The photos had timestamps. The bruises matched patterns. The neighbor testified about what she'd heard through the walls. Janine admitted she'd seen Maya flinch when Ethan raised his voice at a company picnic months earlier. Mrs. Carrington wrote a statement about Ethan's behavior at the dinner table and the way his hand clamped my wrist. And Mr. Carrington? He didn't protect Ethan. He protected the truth. Ethan lost the promotion. Then the job. Then the friends who had laughed at his jokes. His mask didn't just slip. Shattered. One afternoon weeks later, Maya and I sat in a small office with warm lighting and a therapist who spoke softly. Maya's hands were wrapped around a paper cup of tea. She looked tired but different. Bigger. Like she was slowly reclaiming the space Ethan had stolen. After the session, Maya walked out into the sunlight and stopped. She lifted her face to the sky like she was tasting freedom. I didn't think I'd ever feel calm again, she whispered. I stood beside her. You will, I said. Piece by piece. She looked at me, tears in her eyes, and she smiled. Not small. Not scared. Real. I don't know how to thank you, she said. I shook my head. You don't, I said. You live. You heal. You never apologize for surviving. Maya nodded slowly. Then she said something I'll never forget. He thought he owned me, she whispered. But he didn't understand. I wasn't alone. I squeezed her hand. And he didn't understand something else, I added. Maya looked at me. I stared out at the street, at the normal people walking by, living normal lives, unaware of the war that had just been fought inside a quiet suburban house. He didn't understand, I said softly. That karma doesn't always come as lightning. Maya's brow furrowed. Sometimes, I continued, karma comes as proof, as witnesses, as someone finally saying, no. Sometimes karma comes as the world seeing what you've been hiding behind closed doors. Maya's eyes filled again, but this time her tears didn't look like fear. They looked like release. And if you're listening to this story right now, I want you to hear the lesson in it. If someone is hurting you, it is not your job to protect their reputation. If someone is controlling you, it is not love. If someone keeps you afraid, it is not your fault. Silence feels like safety, but it becomes a cage. And the moment you speak, the cage starts to crack. Ethan's living hell wasn't fists. It wasn't revenge the way movies show it. It was consequences. It was the truth crawling into the light and refusing to go back into the dark. It was losing the power he fed on. Because the worst punishment for someone like that is not pain. It's exposure. It's being seen. So if you believe in karma, if you believe that the truth always finds a way, then don't forget this. The people who hurt others count on secrecy. They count on your fear. They count on you thinking you're alone. But you are not. And if this story hit your heart, if you believe that justice matters, then subscribe to this channel. Because here we tell the stories where karma shows up. Maybe late, maybe slow, but always right on time.